Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we have a special treat. I've got a live, a real person who has survived the SQE, or in any event, SQE1, and we're gonna talk about the details of that after. So this is my friend and former student, Isam. Isam, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, Dr. Yanis. As you said, I'm a live SQE victim, and it's victim by the sense of the journey itself. And I'm Isam. I'm a Lebanese lawyer, and I'm a former student of Dr. Yanis. I did my LLM in corporate finance law at the University of Westminster, and I took SQE1, and I'm here.
Yes, and you didn't take SQE2 because you are exempt from this because you are a lawyer in Lebanon.
Correct. That's right. So there's an agreed exemption between the SRA and the Beirut Bar Association, which exempts qualified lawyers in Lebanon, and the exemption I will be applying to early next year.
Yeah, and that's important for those in our audience that are already registered in a foreign jurisdiction. The great news is that you might be exempt from SQE2. And of course, nobody wants to take SQE2 voluntarily if they can get away with it. I've got a couple of videos specifically on what this means and the exemptions that I can link down in the description for people to follow up after. But I just wanted to highlight this. If you're already registered overseas and you're already some way in your legal journey in another jurisdiction, you might have the benefit like Isam here and not have to sit SQE2. So yes, it is. SQE1 is trouble enough without having to go through the horror of SQE2. And most of you here are probably kind of preparing for SQE1 because the channel is mostly focused on that material. By the way, now might be a good point to say thank you to our sponsor, Revise SQE, who is making this happen. So more details about their products and what they have to offer later on, and some links down in the description. But okay, let's get going. First of all, what is it that motivated you to take the SQE to begin with? Was it a desire to practice as a solicitor in this jurisdiction?
Partly yes. So when I came to London in January 2022, I started my LLM. And a bit before I came, a few months before I came, I started reading about ways to qualifying in the UK. And especially that I thought to myself, I would be living here in the upcoming short period of my life. So I wanted to understand better English law. And I thought if I were to work here, I had an understanding of the market that you needed to be qualified to work here, unlike other jurisdictions where you might be foreign qualified and still work. So I started looking at it, and I decided to take SQE1. And by the way, even though I'm exempt from SQE2, but at some point I even thought to myself I might as well take it. But then I pulled back that idea away.
Then you came to your senses and you thought, I just don't want to, I don't want to suffer through this for no reason. Okay, there's a technical. This perhaps is interesting for the audience. The reason why you might want to qualify as a solicitor in England is not technical; it's practical. So, in theory, since they liberalized legal services here, you can work in various parts of the broader legal domain without being legally qualified. A lot of our friends and colleagues are working as paralegals, or they're working in support functions, either in-house or in law firms, without needing the qualification. And working in the legal domain with your foreign qualification or just working without any registration at all is possible, gets you in there, gets you a relatively decent salary at the beginning because it's a good sort of starting graduate level employment. But you're going to hit a problem when you grow up, because when you reach my age, you're going to realize that if you don't have the qualification, then you hit the salary ceiling and your progression stops. So if you're thinking, why really would I need to go? It's not like I'm not trying to sell you the SQE here. I think it's a terrible process. But if you're wondering, is there any point in me going through the SQE since I can find work in the legal domain already? the answer is, if you've got the time and you're closer to the material now, and you think you've got a good chance of succeeding now, it might be a good investment for your future. Because if you let it, you're going to realize that in order to get the higher level jobs later on, you're going to need 10. And perhaps you don't want to be taking the SQE as a 40-something-year-old. You're better off doing it a little bit earlier. So I think it was even though it's technically not required to be qualified, because most of us really don't do contentious work and so on, it's probably a good investment for your future later on.
Yeah, it's practically good to be qualified, especially if you have a lot of exposure to English law.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. And we're talking, if you're thinking how much money are we talking about, you will be able to work in-house in legal teams up until the senior level, and you're going to hit salaries up to, say, 80,000, 90,000 pounds a year, but you won't be able to go above that unless you've got the qualification. And it is a sort of badge of respectability and seniority, even though you might never actually get to do any work that is regulated. But for them to pay you above the 100,000 pounds a year, as we sit in the moment, it's very unlikely you're gonna get that unless you get the qualification.
Exactly. So it basically just puts a ceiling for you in terms of your career progression and in terms of your salary expectations and the salary benefits as well.
Yeah. So then when you become now that you've got the SQE1, once when you complete everything else, then you're getting paid the big bucks, then you can come back and sponsor the channel yourself.
Yeah.
Now, your journey through the SQE, however, has not been super easy, because the first time you tried it, it didn't go very well, did it?
It didn't. It went partially well. So the first time I took SQE1, I passed FLK1 and I did not pass FLK2. Even though going into the exam, I was more comfortable studying FLK2. I was more, um, I had more the grip of SQE of FLK2, sorry, and it was more convenient studying FLK2 because it even relates to what I work in terms of property and land and all of that. And I somehow found it interlinked together. Even with all of that, I still did not pass FLK2 the first time. Just managed to pass FLK1.
Yeah, to remind our audience of what we're talking about, SQE1 is split into two separate parts, FLK1 and FLK2, because they like abbreviations. FLK1, for me, is easier because it's probably closer to the stuff that I'm used to. So it contains things like business law, dispute resolution, which has to do with some civil and criminal litigation issues, but mostly civil. So when we're talking about dispute resolution, it's got parts of ADR, it's got the basics of how you take a case through the trial process, it's got contract law, tort, basics of the English legal system. So these are all things that one would hit at the beginning of the law degree, say in the first couple of years. It gets a little bit trickier if you're looking at FLK2, because FLK2 contains all this stuff that, no offense to my property lawyer friends, but it's got property law in practice, which is, nobody really likes. It's got wills and estates that I even though I recently published a video on this, I still don't like it. I find it tricky. It's got stuff that nobody comes across in the law degree, like solicitors' accounts. And then it's got land law and trusts and criminal law and some good bits of professional ethics. So, strangely, you felt more comfortable with that stuff then? Is it like the property law is closer to what you do?
Not just property law, like the whole idea of wills, trusts, and properties were all somehow in my head one full package that comes together. So I found like land law, trusts, wills, they were all, I looked at them as one batch. And then you have criminal litigation and criminal law, which I looked as also one. It was a bit different than studying FLK1. And even when I did not make it the first time, it was just by like 1%. It was still back on the. I didn't make it by 1%. Probably just a few questions.
And do you feel that? Why do you think that happened? Do you think because you felt that you knew the subject better, you prepared less, or did you devote less time to it? Maybe.
No, I actually felt more comfortable because I devoted more time for FLK2 and I studied FLK2 more in more details. But to me, the overall journey, the first time, I think there are three main factors. The first one is the excitement, and it's that I thought it's taking the SQE is something I want to do right now, and I just want to get it out of the way. And I even enrolled in the course when I was still doing my master's at Westminster. So to me, that was a mistake. I had just submitted my dissertation on the 23rd of January, and then on the 25th, the 1st of February, I started studying. So that was not a well thought of decision. And then the second thing is that I did not actually understand how difficult the journey towards the SQE would be. And I thought I'd just treat it like any other exam. And why do I need to study 40 weeks ahead of time? I did not actually understand how bad it is. And thirdly is the studying method. I know like studying is not a uniform one size fits all kind of thing. Each candidate, each person has their own way of studying. And I think that was the problem.
I think you touched on a great issue there because the vast majority of people that I'm interacting with underestimate the amount of time it takes. And, it's weird because if you're at uni full time, you will think this is like any other exam, and it's not, because this is an exam that relies purely on recollection of a vast amount of content, but on a fairly shallow level. So it's not like other types of exams that you used to approach with material accessible, or you can always look up the details and you need to think about critical aspects of it. It's fundamentally different from what people do during their law degree. And then it touches upon areas that are quite niche, and it will take a great amount of time. By the way, you didn't just prepare by yourself. Would you like to share with us who supported you in your study?
Yeah, so I took a prep course, and there are two major prep courses available for people here, which is the Barbary SQE prep course and the QLTS prep course. QLTS is still named QLTS, even though it's named after the method which was previously used for foreign qualified lawyers. And I went with the Barbary prep course the first time. And because I was still not in a mood to study really well and read all the heavy books, what I chose was going through the multiple choice questions. And I did like a reverse study method, which I just guessed the question, and then if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, I would study the answer and know I know the piece of information.
Okay, so you used it in a way to kind of, you studied from the multiple choice questions to kind of filter your own knowledge and to figure out your own knowledge level, which then directed what to study.
Exactly, and it didn't turn out really well. Um, and yes, so that's
Did you find the material given by Barbary difficult to navigate?
uh, technically not, because they make it all accessible in terms of the hard copy books, the videos, and the multiple choice questions. But what I found different, I'm the kind of candidate who would, if I want to understand something really well, I wouldn't just want to go into the shallow study part of it. I don't just want the information which is floating on the surface. I'm the kind of candidate which wants to understand it thoroughly and keep on asking questions. And that's not what they provide. Like they tell you, like if you're if you're 80% ready for the exam or 70% ready for the exam, then you're ready for the exam. So they prepare you around 80% of what might come in the exam. And it's just not just on personal experience. I have a friend who took the SQE with Barbary as well, and she had some questions which turned up on the exam, and she was like, "I've never seen this before." Uh, and if you think about it, these might be the few questions that would have made the difference. So
What I find from my discussions I'm having with people is that even when you sign on with a prep course, and I think signing on with a prep course is a good idea. If you're not a recent law graduate from this jurisdiction, I think you need external support. The only people who might be able to manage without are either the people who just finished a law degree that was quite traditional and very thorough, right, very recently, or the people who have actually been working in England for a very long time and they just need a refresher of things or to kind of cover areas that they might not have come across in their practice. Now, for everybody else, and especially foreign lawyers who are trying to get on top of the English law content, I think you might need a prep course. But what is helpful, I find, is not to think about the purchase of the prep course as something that kind of locks you into their own material. You're still allowed to do your own research and look at other stuff. And
I recommend you do that because think about the prep course like you're studying at a university level, or you're sitting an actual course. And most professors would tell you that studying in the lecture is not enough. You need to do external studying. So think about it that way.
the problem that we've got is that when you try to do external study, you cannot simply go and pick up undergraduate law textbooks because they go way beyond what you need for the SQE. And that's where our sponsor here, Revise SQE, has been very helpful because their titles are covering the totality of the content for SQE1 and SQE2, and they focus you only on the level of detail that you need for the SQE. So what tends to happen is that even, of course, independent candidates need to get the books to study, but even for people who are in a prep course, they tend to get the Revise SQE titles to have perhaps the same content but delivered in a different way, because some books and some presentations appeal to some people, some others need something else. So it's always a good idea to supplement the work that you do even when you are within a prep course with additional titles like the Revise SQE titles to give you a different view and a different take. And when it comes to the multiple choice questions, no matter how many you can get your hands on, you should actually do them. Where beyond the questions that you were provided by Barbary, at least initially, did you do any others that you found from the outside?
The first time, not. The second time, I did.
Okay.
Um,
Because the second time that you tried to take the FLK2, then you went with QLTS School, you said.
Correct. Yes. I went with QLTS School for two different reasons. One is that I thought I'd just give it a try. I had tried this method, it didn't work for me. And then I went with the QLTS School because I saw like their textbooks or their questions have a different approach or different scenario-based methods, which I felt was more realistic. It was more exam style, given that I've actually seen the exam itself.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you the question that neither Barbary nor QLTS School is sponsoring this video, right? It's only Revise SQE. So
Depends on the candidate. It depends on the candidate themselves, what they feel they need. So some candidates feel they need more support from someone else. They need support in terms of having their study plan put together. But the thing I realized from many candidates who took the exam or friends who I know and I've spoken to, the build up towards the exam itself with Barbary feels comfortable. But then you go into the exam and you realize, and then the complaining starts. We haven't seen this, we haven't seen that, no one told us about this. This was not covered in the videos, nor the textbooks, nor the multiple choice questions. However, what QLTS does is that they put textbooks in your hands which cover lots of details. So if you missed it, it's on you. And they give you lots of multiple choice questions to an extent where you will not even do all of the multiple choice questions because you don't have enough time to do the reading and the multiple choice questions. But they've done their part. They've given you everything, and the rest is on you now.
Okay. So do you get the impression then that Barbary is more supportive through the experience, but QLTS is more kind of self-studying, but more thorough?
Which I didn't mind the next time because I approached the exam in a different mentality. I approached the exam in a different study method.
Was it more difficult? Because I mean, I'm thinking really hard about what we can do to support the people who have failed and then they have to do it again. And I've got quite a few people who are subscribers to my newsletter, for instance, that have contacted me to say that they're working towards retaking the exam and they're finding it very challenging. What advice would you give to people who are actually trying to retake in terms of either study prep or psychologically how to cope with it all?
Study prep, probably I'm not the best person to give advice on study prep, but psychologically, I would tell you that first time it did actually somehow break my confidence. I was one of the top students my university back in Lebanon, and
You were one of the top students of mine as well.
I even tutor law students who are applying to the Beirut bar exam, and it's just something I do with so much passion. I love it, and I love doing part-time academia. So I enjoy the idea of studying and teaching and all of that. But I had my own my own study method, which worked for the exams in Lebanon and doesn't work here. So that's something very important if you're foreign qualified. The way that works back home does not necessarily work here because you're approaching a different style of exam. And psychologically, you have to emotionally detach yourself from the outcome that happened the first time. Because I've heard stories of people who were just terrified of trying the exam the next time. They had enough of it and they completely shift their careers or shift their way. So do not allow the experience to do that to you. What happens is the moment you leave the exam, even though there are 180 questions, you start remembering questions you didn't think you'd remember, and you start guessing what did you answer and what was the correct answer, and this happens for a while, and then when you come to study again, there's this thought of the exam and what you're going to experience is always on your mind. So I suggest that you actually emotionally detach from it and handle it with a do not fixate on the SQE. This was an advice my friend gave me. Do not fixate that this exam is going to change your life or change your career. Do not think that it's the only thing you have ahead of you.
Yeah.
And then you can study with more comfort.
Yeah, and I think we need to acknowledge that this is a horrible exam. And as it's difficult, I think to a great degree, it is unfair the way that it's structured. The fact that they don't publish past exam papers, that people have to guess what the exam is like, that they need to sign on with private providers who pretend to know, but in fact they themselves do not have direct experience of it. I think the whole thing is very problematic. But also, it's important to remember that this is an assessment. So, as with every assessment that we do at uni, perhaps, when you're being assessed, it's not you, in fact, it's the paper. It's the thing that you put together at that one period of time. So, if you have failed it, it's not a condemnation of you as an individual, your entire worth, your entire career prospects. It just means that in this one sitting, this one paper, you didn't do as well as you could. And if you try and think of it this way, I think it might ease a little bit the psychological burden, because the vast majority of people will experience this as a personal failure, that I did not manage to pass the exam, rather than this particular exam did not go well. We have to say this again and again and again. Try, I know it's difficult, but try not to take it personally. Try not to perceive failure in the SQE as a personal failure, but see it as a technical thing that you can fix.
Exactly. And that's why I said you need to emotionally detach yourself from it. And I think another concern people have is the great deal of money you're putting into it, especially if you're studying with a course provider and you need to pay for the course provider and you need to pay for the exam sitting. This is all very challenging, especially if you are working full time or if you have someone else pay. Both ways, it's challenging. If you have someone else pay for your exam, whether it was your employer or your family, it's challenging because you will feel somehow that you have let them down. And if you are paying it yourself, it's very challenging because you know you're gonna have to pay it again.
Yeah. What really worries me is that if you have a training contract, or now the equivalent of the training contract, if they yank it from you because you failed the SQE, then you're in serious trouble. So if you're self-funding this, then you have to worry about the burden of paying for the exam again, to take it again, or additional costs of staying on with the prep provider. But what has been really problematic are the people who were funded by law firms, and then you have your position lost because you didn't pass the first time around. And this is getting a lot of attention in the press and so on. Now, I understand that if somebody else is covering the cost, then there will be terms and conditions attached to that. So if you are taking such a deal with a law firm, you need to be really sure you understand the terms and conditions that come with your contract with the law firm. And if they don't allow failure, then or they don't allow a retake, and you lose your funding and you lose your post, maybe this is something to think about when you're accepting the offer. Are you a great candidate that has had multiple offers from various law firms? Do all the law firms have the same terms? Do any of the law firms that are making you an offer tolerate a retake? So that's something that you need to think about really, really carefully. Don't just think, I'm going to go for the most prestigious law firm, if there is sort of limited recourse in case something goes wrong. There's an element of chance in all of this as well. I was about to say that I think that the people who were top performers and managed to get the training contracts have got higher chances of success, but that might not be a fair thing to say, because that really kind of forgets that there's so much chance that comes with these horrible multiple choice tests.
Yes, like sometimes the exam paper itself has so many questions on one certain aspect of topics that you are very well certain of, and you have a good understanding of. And sometimes you might have a set of questions which you are not very much comfortable with.
As with every exam, I mean, we do this with, we're having these discussions with my undergraduate students, that you're preparing, you say that you've got an exam like the ones that we do at the University of London. You're getting like a traditional exam paper. It's got 8 questions. You need to write 4 answers. So you get to choose. But there's nothing to say that you're actually going to find 4 in topics that you revised really, really well. It could be that you're super unlucky, and this is the one year that we came up with the kind of topic that we haven't examined for a while, that kind of skipped your mind, and the rest of the questions you don't like. And even though you were super, super well prepared, just out of bad luck, you hit topics that you weren't 100% on. And the possibility of this happening and going wrong in a multiple choice test is like way, way higher, actually.
It's higher, exactly. And one thing, multiple choice questions themselves are a very important part of the exam. So there's the studying, and then there's the multiple choice question. It's like if you're studying for an exam which is case study based, studying the material itself, the substantive material, is one thing, but then approaching the case study and how you would solve it is another thing. So approaching the multiple choice questions, how you read the question, how you go through the possible answers, and then choosing the single best answer is a completely different thing than just studying material.
Yeah, I know, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like this exam, because I don't really think that we can somehow demonstrate the day one outcomes through multiple choice tests. But that's the way the regulator choose to go about it. Do you feel that the setback that you've had, not passing FLK1 and FLK2 the first time around, and then proceeding straight, so the fact that you had to retake FLK2, looking back on it now, do you still see it as a negative thing, or do you think it left you with something? Did it help you with your professionalism, your resilience, your way to overcome? Can we kind of pull out something positive out of it?
There's definitely lots of positive things about it. I was just thinking to myself, and probably the only negative thing is two negative things is that I had to pay money again, and that's
But
just
that we cannot spin as a positive. Costing a few £1,000s extra is never a good idea.
never a good idea. But then you never know what I would have done with that money. It's not like it would have made me a lot richer.
You see, that's what the Greek prime minister said once. They said, we did not increase the pensions, but what would they spend it on anyway?
Exactly.
I'm sure you can find ways to spend it.
I would just spend it on more Deliveroo.
Even though that giving it to Kaplan, probably it's better spent on Deliveroo, to be honest.
And probably the only the second negative thing, it did not delay any career directions or any career goal, because it's still the same thing. I still need to wait for my SQE2 exemption, and it doesn't look bad in front of other employers, because what people just care about is that you have the final outcome is that you passed, you're
Yeah.
qualified. And the positive thing about it is the persistence. I realized how much persistent I am. I realized I can actually live to a standard of commitment which I wanted and I needed to pass SQE, to pass FLK2 or SQE1 in general. And in terms of professionalism, it taught me, inevitably, it taught me how to manage my time. Because there was just this one option ahead of me, working and studying at the same time, having to manage both with the highest efficiency. And it just taught me that sometimes failure is an integral part of the journey, and it's the overall journey that counts, and not just passing. It gives you a sense of satisfaction which is a bit higher than if you had passed it all the first time. You wouldn't
Yeah.
actually feel what it means.
Yeah, and we gotta remind the audience that half the people fail. I mean, the pass rates went a little bit up in the January exams, and I've got like some videos when I'm discussing this. But in fact, almost half people fail on average, right? And the failure rate for resitters is actually worse, which is a concern. But look, we've all failed in stuff, and we continue to fail in stuff. I failed my university entrance exam. Did I tell you this? So when I was finishing school, we had to take a university entrance exam, and I did terribly. I don't know. I was like a top student. I had prepared to the extent that anybody could prepare. I had spent years on that thing. And when the results came out, it was like, the building collapsed on me. It's probably the same feeling as you had when you received the email that said that FLK2 was missing. So it was really like you felt like being hit by a train. And it took me a while to kind of come to terms with what this meant. But what it actually meant is that within a few weeks, I took the decision to come and study in England instead of taking the exam again for a Greek university. And that fundamentally changed my life. And, sitting in the kind of remnants of my kitchen as I'm moving home, I think it kind of worked out okay. But you see, even setbacks, even if in your mind the worst thing that can happen to you is to fail the exam, even if that happens, there is still a life that comes after that. And you are proof that you can retake it and pass it and proceed. Even people that we know that chose not to do it again and to do something else and move in a different direction with their careers, that ended up okay. So it's never the end, but I do acknowledge that it's a difficult thing to deal with.
That's why I emphasize again on not fixating on the SQE itself and thinking that this will change your life and that's the only thing ahead of you. And also, if it actually means if it means that much to you, then the setback won't matter. If all you want to do is pass SQE and you think that's going to change your lives, then one setback won't matter until you achieve the goal.
Yeah, and of course, if you want to pass the first time around, you need to have the time to prepare properly and to get as much material and support to help you prepare properly. And that's why we're happy to have Revise SQE with us today to prepare properly. And the materials from Revise SQE is what I recommend for people to support their study, whether they're studying privately or whether they're studying together with a prep school, to have the best chance of success when they're taking their exam, be that the first time around or whether they're trying to resit.
A friend of mine who studied with a prep course, and on top of the prep course, I remember very well she ordered the revised SQE books, and she really depended on their material during the last run or the last phase of the exam of the preparation. For like 2 weeks building up towards the exam, she just went all through the revised SQE books.
Yeah.
She found it very helpful as a supportive.
Yeah, and that might be the time actually that you need something that is purely focused on the material and summarizes the key things that you need. Because if you're at the last stages of your revision as the exam is coming up, you don't really have the time to go through proper textbooks. It's possible also that the material given to you by the prep school are too big for you to navigate quickly. So the revised SQE titles that are fairly small books, they are designed to give you the opportunity to quickly revise the key things, attempt multiple choice questions in that style to then bring you up to speed with everything that you need as you're entering in the last stages before the exam.
Yes, and psychologically it feels better going through one each title on its own, and then you just pull the textbook that's related to that title rather than holding one big textbook and going through titles.
Oh yeah, and just one last thing. Did you work from hard copy material or from digital resources?
So whether it was Barbary or QLTS, they provide both. But personally, I work from the hard copies, not the digital material.
Yeah, me too. I'm from a generation that when you're trying to focus for the exam, the way that it worked for me was having the physical books and then making handwritten notes of it. And the process of making the notes is what helped it get and stay in my head.
And on the, I'm from that study method school.
Yeah,
I could call it generation because some.
but it could be that especially for people from here that are used to digital resource from a younger age, they can effectively do this using digital copy. And
Personally, I didn't think that this would let the information sink in properly. I needed to read it. I needed to write something down about it.
so what I'm also thinking might be useful for our audience is the idea that you need to be immersed in this material for quite a bit of time. So you shouldn't try one thing in isolation. So you use your prep school, you use external material like the revised SQE titles, and then you try and embed yourself in a community of people who are going through the same experience, because it can be very, very lonely. So if you can kind of make friends or be in contact with other people that are going through the same, I think it's hugely important. If you don't have anybody because you're self-studying, then join an online group. That's why I've got the Facebook group. That's why I've got the newsletter. in attempts to kind of bring people together if they're self-studying and get support by being parts of communities, either real ones or digital ones, because this is really a very burdensome thing to do on your own.
It's very helpful actually having people around you going through the same experience. You would be able to encourage each other, support each other, and just track your progress. Because people who are not taking the SQE or who are very far away from the legal industry or know much about it probably will not understand why you have to study so hard, or probably will not they won't be able to hold you accountable if you just don't study for a few days, or you get behind. However, if you're part of a community, you'd be able to see their progress. This would encourage you to study harder. They would be able to ask you some questions which would trigger your curiosity and your information. They would test your information. And this really helped me when I was studying, and a friend of mine would ask me, hey, I did not understand the 3 formulas of exchange of contract and property. And then if I know the answer, I would give it straight away. But if I don't, I would have to go back to the textbook, read it, and then explain it to my friend, which made me grasp the information even better.
Yeah. Yesterday I was walking to the bus stop, and there was this girl coming towards me, and she was carrying this huge book that said criminal practice on it. And I thought I should say something like, I know what you're going through, but then I thought it might look a bit weird if somebody approaches you on the street to offer SQE advice.
Yeah, I used to see them in coffee shops and ask people, "Are you taking the SQE?" And then we just talk about it, because people actually want to know other people's experience about them.
Fantastic. Well, look, man, thank you so much for coming here today and having this chat. I think it's gonna be super useful for our audience. And you know, anybody who needs help, who needs support, who needs other people to talk to, subscribe to the channel so you get all the information about all these new videos. You can even join the channel as a paying member, and then I put you into a special Facebook group where there's a smaller group community and group of people where we talk together. And join anything you can, get access to anything you want. The more you're immersed in this stuff, the better it gets. And the important message is you will survive. Isam here has tried it and he has survived. He's proof that this is a survivable experience, even if you don't pass everything first time around.
It is. And one last thing, if I may, actually two, you will survive, and just feel excited about it, about the journey. And I also watched so many of Dr. Yanis's videos on his channel. So these were very helpful as well. Whether you're just on the bus ride, in the gym, on the treadmill, they're helpful. As he said, just get immersed in the material as much as you can, and these are a part of being immersed in the whole material itself. And no, he's not sponsoring this part of the video again.
Yeah.
And feel free to reach out, whether to Dr. Yanis or to me. If to anyone who watches this video and you reach this part of the video, feel free to reach out.
I hope you found this useful, everybody. Follow the links down in the description for more information on everything, and we'll see you all on the next video.
Thank you.